Okay, boys and girls, we're gonna start to draw our forms on our worksheet. We're starting with these main forms right here, the cube, the sphere, the cylinder, the cone, the pyramid, and the cone. After we draw these and add the shading and the value, then we'll move on to maybe trying some more challenging forms. And then if we have time, we'll move on to brainstorming our invention idea on the next paper. So we have two pencils that we're going to be using today. Just a regular pencil that you usually use in art class, and then a special darker pencil. This is what we're going to use to add the shading, the shadows, and this is what we use to draw the form. So this is a very dark lead, and this is kind of a lighter one. So I'm going to put this one aside for now. I don't need that one yet. I'm going to use my regular pencil to start drawing my first form. Our first form is the cube. So looking at my top form here, I'm going to just start by writing the word cube. C-U-B-E, cube. Next to the example of the cube, that's where I'm going to start to draw my own cube. There's a couple ways that we can draw a cube depending on what angle we're looking at the cube. We're going to start with this angle right here. So notice in the middle of the cube there's a big letter Y. I'm going to start by sketching a big letter Y with my pencil. So I can see kind of the corner of the cube there. Then on the bottom, we notice some diagonal lines that match the top. So I'm going to go straight up and straight up, kind of like a V now at the bottom. These lines at the bottom should really match the two lines at the top. They're the same angle. Now on the sides, we see two straight lines coming straight down, straight down. They're not at an angle, they're straight down. So I'm going to meet these two lines together by just going straight down. Now, I don't want to make this at an angle, so I'm just going to go as straight as I can, and if I went off a little bit, then I erase that. Same thing for this side, just go straight down, and then erase the little corner that popped out. Okay, now on the top, we notice that the cube goes up and then comes down at two angled lines. So I'm just going to go up and then come straight down. So the top should look kind of like a diamond. Okay, so that's one way to draw our cube. The cube is probably the trickiest one, so if you got it, that's great. If you didn't, we'll keep practicing as we go along. There's another angle we can draw a cube at, and it's just a different side view of the cube. So I'm going to start this time on this side and just start with a square, just a regular old square. Now looking at this square, I need to make some diagonal lines for the sides of the cube because the cube has 6 sides, so I can see a few of these sides here. I'm going to start on this left corner and just make a diagonal line. Then I'm going to move to the next corner here on the top and make a same diagonal line, same direction. Notice how they're going parallel in the same direction. Then on the bottom corner, same line, parallel in the same direction. Okay, now from here, I need to make a straight line that goes down and connects these two lines. And then on the top, I'm just going to go straight across. Kind of like this line is straight, I'm just going to make a parallel line. If my line popped out a little bit on the corner, I'm just going to erase that. That's okay. Okay, so 2 views for the cube. We're not going to add the shadows and the light spots yet. We're just going to wait on that. We're going to go to the next one now. The next one looks like a circle, but it's actually not. It's more like a ball form. So we call this a sphere. S-P-H-E-R-E, sphere. The PH makes an F sound, sphere. For the sphere, all we really need to do, this one is super simple, we just need to draw a circle. Now this kind of looks like a flat circle shape, but we'll turn it into a form in a minute by adding these dark and medium and light spots. So we're just going to leave it as a circle for now. Super simple. Okay, the next one kind of looks like a can, like a Coke can, or maybe like a bottle form. So we're going to call this the cylinder, C-Y-L-I-N-D-E-R, cylinder. Okay, notice the cylinder. It has a flat top, a flat bottom and a curved and rounded sides like this. That's what makes it look kind of like a can. So we're gonna start with the flat top. It's just a flat oval, a long flat oval, kind of like a hot dog. Then on the sides, there's two straight lines that come down and they are connected to the very edge of the oval. So just bring those two lines down. We want them to be kind of ending at the same spot down here. And then, this is very important. Notice the bottom of the cylinder is a curve. That's very important to show that this form is curved. Okay, it's not a straight line across, it's a curved line, just like the top is a curved oval. So I'm just gonna take my pencil and make a curved line on the bottom. Okay. So a cylinder, this is just a basic cylinder. We can make kind of a funkier cylinder with different sides to it by making maybe a smaller top. And then again, two straight lines. But this time I'm just gonna curve the bottom. This is kind of looking like a vase or maybe like a science beaker. And then curve the bottom again, just like this bottom is curved. So there's many ways you can draw a cylinder. You could even draw a cylinder like a tube that has some curves. If you put some curvy lines around it, it would look like a tube. So cylinders just have flat tops like this, straight sides, and rounded bottoms. Okay, let's flip to the next page. We're gonna practice a pyramid now. So let's write the word pyramid. P-Y-R-A-M-I-D, pyramid. Okay, a pyramid is a form that has, it's kind of like a cube, but it's pointed at the top. So it has a flat side, and then two other flat sides. So notice how, looking like the cube, it has a line going down and then angled lines at the bottom. So we're gonna start with a straight line and two diagonal lines at the bottom. So it's gonna kind of look like an arrow pointing down when you start it. Okay, now pretty simple, just two more angled lines, starting at the top and going down, and then starting at the top again and going down. So we can see this side is flat, this side is flat. Looks kind of like the pyramids in Egypt. Okay, we'll add the value in the shading later. Let's move on to the next one. And this is our last one we're gonna practice together. It's called the cone. Kind of like an ice cream cone. C-O-N-E, cone. Okay, a cone is like a cylinder. It has curved sides, not flat sides like the pyramid. Okay, they look similar, but they're different. Curved, flat. Cone starts almost as if you're drawing a triangle. Okay, but we're not drawing a triangle, we're drawing a form. So we need to make sure it looks like it has a curved line on the bottom. So that's a cone sitting on its bottom. If we wanted to draw a cone flipped upside down, we would draw it kind of like the cylinder. We would start with a oval, and then at the edges of the oval, make two straight lines at a diagonal. So that kind of looks a little bit more like an ice cream cone. If I put some lines on it, it would look just like an ice cream cone. Okay, we have finished drawing all 5 of our forms, so we're gonna put this pencil down, pick up your shading pencil, your really dark lead. This does not have to be very sharp. In fact, the less sharp it is, the easier it is to shade with it. Let's go back to the cube. The cube has 3 sides that we can see. The very darkest value side, a medium, and then a light side. So we're gonna start by adding this shadow for the dark side. Pick either one of your cubes, it doesn't matter which one. Start with one side and start to shade this side in, going back and forth, covering the whole side with your shading pencil. Notice how the shading pencil is very dark. As you start to add the color, it's gonna get very dark like a shadow. Now notice I have some little white spots there too. I can go back in and shade those, or I can take my finger and just smooth it a little bit, because a shading pencil has very different lead. It's very easy to smooth it out and blend it. So I'm just gonna smooth it a little bit. kind of went off my form though, so I'm just gonna take my eraser and clean up the sides like that. Okay, so once I cover in the whole area with the dark shadow, then I'm gonna go on to the medium side. This time, I'm not gonna press as hard as I did with the shadow. I'm gonna press kind of in the middle. So I'm gonna shade this not as dark as the shadow, just kind of medium. So I'm gonna go once and then go back and overlap another time to make it a little darker. Not as dark as the shadow though. Notice when I'm shading, I'm not using the tip of my brush up and down, I'm using the side of it. So I'm just going like this, using the side, not up and down like I normally use my pencil, just shading with the side. That makes a nice thick line, not a thin line like this. That's not good shading. I want a nice, thick, smooth line. So notice how I'm holding it. I'm holding it like this, pressing like this. Okay, back and forth one more time to make that medium one. Okay, I should be able to match the picture pretty well. Not exactly, but pretty well. If I went off my form, I can just erase a little bit. Okay, now for the lightest side, I'm not gonna press very hard at all. I'm just gonna very lightly hold my pencil, and I'm barely even tickling my page. I'm just pressing very lightly to get a little bit of color on there, not a lot. Okay, because we are imagining that the sun is coming, or the light is coming and hitting the top. So it's making a bright spot here and a shadow over here on this side. So this is the brightest spot. Okay, so let's start shading our cube now. Okay, when we're ready to move on to the sphere has a dark, a medium, and a light spot too. What I like to do is I just like to break it up into 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. Dark, medium, light. Starting with the dark spot, holding my pencil on the side again, just shade this whole area dark. Now I need to go back over this a few times so it matches this darkness over there. I want it to be pretty dark. It's kind of hard for me to stay inside of the sphere, and it might be hard for you to stay inside of the sphere too when you're shading like this, but that's okay. You can just take your pencil and erase the side. Now moving on to this area, I'm gonna shade kind of medium, not pressing as hard as the shadow spot, kind of in the middle. So overlapping a couple times to make this a little darker. I can even go back into this area and blend this a little bit more with my finger so that it's smooth from dark to medium to light. Okay, and then the light spot, barely even touching that spot. Barely even touching that spot. And then go back in and shade this a little bit more. I think I need to make this a little bit darker, so I'm gonna go back in there too. Really dark shadow there. And then blend it with my finger. Okay, and erase on the side if I went off my sphere. Okay, let's start shading the sphere now. Okay, now moving into the cylinder. The cylinder has a top that's very bright because the light's hitting it. It's not very light at all. Then it has a dark spot here, a medium spot here, a very bright highlight spot here, and then another medium spot. So it has kind of like 4 spaces. So I'm gonna start with the darkest spot here, the shadow. Just shade, I can shade up and down or left to right, whatever is easiest for me. Okay, once I've shaded that whole space there, then I'm gonna move into the medium side here, not pressing as hard, pressing kind of in the middle. Okay, I can blend these two together again. All right, now this spot, I'm not gonna press very hard at all. Almost like I'm tickling the paper, I'm not even touching that spot. And then I'm moving back into a medium one. Then this medium one matches this medium one. Okay, I can even put a tiny little shadow over here too to make it look like it has shadows on both sides. Blend it out a little bit. Okay, the top is very light, so I'm just gonna press very lightly on the top. It should match the spot right there. If you ever feel like you've gotten too much pencil lead in the light spot, you can just take your pencil and go back in and erase that so it looks like it's very bright highlight, like the light is hitting it, okay? All right, let's move on to the last two. Now I want you to try the last two by yourself. The pyramid is dark and medium, two sides. That one's pretty simple. The cone, again, is dark, medium, like the cylinder. So I'm just gonna make dark, medium, light, medium. 4 spaces for the cone, and shade those in just like we shaded the cylinder. Okay, let's try those last two.